Good morning and welcome to episode number 55 of the RDO podcast with me, Jason, and you, Alex Von Kennel.
There was another nice early internet reference there.
Well, it's actually very,
2004.
very relevant to what you want to speak about today.
Is it?
Hell yeah, it's 55. A smash hit by the rap group X.
Yeah. Okay, and what happened to them?
I think they're actually still going strong. I did look them up the other day, just randomly. I think they've released multiple albums, because I was trying to find the original album that 55 was from an album. It was called something along the lines of, what was it? It was something like Chafing on the... it's
For anyone that doesn't know what we're talking about, we'll post a link to the video.
Everyone should know what we're talking about when they're talking about 55.
You definitely won't, but we will post a link in probably, I think, would it have been 2004 or something, maybe earlier? We thought this was the funniest thing.
It was one of the first like viral music, like funny music videos.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. But let's before we get into the weeds, let's talk about our weeks a little bit first.
Yeah, I had a very interesting week. You go first.
Okay, so I just wanted to give a bit of an update on parenting, because, as you guys know, I'm a parent.
It's so hard.
Oh, man.
It is so hard.
It's full on. But we've had some sort of good progress this week. We've made some changes. So we've made the decision to pull Nate out of daycare at the moment, because him and then me has been consistently sick every month since January, when we first started sending him to daycare. And it's a shame, because we love sending him there because he really enjoys it. It's good for socialization. The daycare center that we send him to has got great teachers. Like, everyone's so awesome there, but he's just been getting smashed month in and month out. And as you guys have probably heard me complain about a few times before, because of the sickness, I've been getting no sleep, because I've been getting up for him almost every night. He already isn't the best sleeper in the world, and he seems to be really susceptible to things like tonsillitis and stuff like that, which obviously irritates your throat in the middle of the night, and then it's causing him not to eat as much, all that sort of stuff. So we made the decision to pull him out of daycare, just for the time being. And so we've gone from, he was going to daycare 2 days a week, gone down to 1 day a week now, where Amanda's mum is taking care of him for us on a Wednesday, because she gets those days off work. So because of that, I have temporarily parked not just the tip, because it's quite labour intensive to put together. Like, even just the prezos and stuff doesn't seem like much, but it takes a couple of hours to actually put it together, then record it, then do all the uploading, all that sort of stuff. So I sort of thought, for the time being, I'm going to park that. But if there's like a major event on, like maybe NRL Grand Final, or if there's a big UFC card or something big, I might do just sort of standalone shows on that. But for now, the weekly show is just going to be sort of parked, because it only leaves me 1 day a week to catch up on things like housework and all that sort of fun stuff. But I've got a bit of a funny... Well, it's not even that long a story. So when it comes to parenting, one of the biggest rules when you have a child that doesn't sleep very well is, when they go to sleep, just let them sleep. So yesterday morning, I was taking Nate out to SeaWorld, because we've got yearly passes for SeaWorld. And everything went well in the morning. So he actually slept pretty well the night before. And then he's not sick at the moment, so we're actually sleeping pretty well. And we drive out to SeaWorld, and unbeknownst to myself, I go to get him out of the car and he's already asleep. And this is at 10 o'clock in the morning. So this is not what's supposed to happen. He's supposed to only be tired about lunchtime.
Right.
So I was like, well, I need to let him sleep for as long as I can, because if I don't, he's going to be really grizzly later, and then he probably won't go to sleep. Or if he only sleeps a little bit, then he'll want an afternoon sleep, and then he won't go to sleep until like 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
So it's a science, right? So I'm like, okay, I'll let him sleep. So I'm just sitting in the car, and I'm like, he'll probably wake up in 15 minutes or something anyway. So 45 minutes has passed, and he's still asleep. And...
So you're just sitting in the car park?
I'm just sitting in the car park at SeaWorld. Just sitting in the car park at SeaWorld, playing on my phone, listening to podcasts and stuff like that. But my bladder is full to bursting.
Right.
See where I'm going with this, don't you?
Yes.
I pissed in my water bottle. in the SeaWorld car park. Yeah.
So you couldn't drive to a park?
Well, I could, but you can't just leave your kid asleep in the car on his own.
Can't you?
Nah.
So
I'm sure there's laws against that.
you can't park close to the door. Like, a number one for a man's quite quick.
Yeah, but the other problem is too, as soon as you shut the door, that sound will probably wake him up as well. And I want to give him the best opportunity to sleep as long as he possibly can. So
Man, that is wild.
mate,
Like,
these are sacrifices you make as a parent.
and I want to say that. So Tasha and I were talking about it because we came and saw you guys on Sunday.
Yeah.
And I just have to, a shout out to all the parents out there. The amount of sacrifice that you put towards generating life is astonishing.
Yeah.
Because I'll give you the tip. I ain't pissing in no bowl. I'll give you another tip. I ain't waiting in a car park for 45 minutes for no man.
Yeah, and it would have ended up being longer than that too.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've ever pissed in a bottle sober. I'll put it that way.
Here's a third thing. Mm-hmm. If there was something stopping me from sleeping 3 nights, I'm out of there. I'm deleting whatever it is that's stopping me from sleeping. Because I get my sleep.
Oh yeah.
I get lots of it.
Yeah, yeah. The RDO podcast followers know that you get your sleep.
So Tasha and I were talking about it on the way. I'm like, man, like it's just because our lives are so different, you know, and it's funny because it's funny for us because we get none of the pain, and in a way we get to enjoy some of the
you get to
and auntie
play
things.
with them and stuff, and then hand it back.
Yeah, because it's like it's a firearm.
Yeah,
it's
it's full on. Like everyone knows that when you have kids, your life's going to change. You have no idea how much it's going to change by though. Like you really just don't. And you can have all the best intentions in the world, but you know, like the sleeping thing, for example. We've got heaps of friends that have kids that have just slept ever since they brought them home from hospital. And that's awesome. Now, when we look back at the last... Because obviously you go, okay, he doesn't sleep well. Is it our fault? Like, you want to try to fix the problem. And we think back to right at the beginning of bringing him home. So he got this, like, stomach virus thing, which apparently only, like, less than 5% of newborns get. Right. And it gave him chronic diarrhea for, like, 3 months.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Mine was a licorice and IPA induced. And vitamins.
Yeah, that was your hop bombs that we're talking about in the group chat.
Yeah, well, yeah, more of a hop gassing.
Yeah. But yeah, so he got the stomach bug. And so for his first 3 months, he was essentially having diarrhea probably 15 times a day, roughly. So obviously, you're not going to sleep very well in the middle of the night when you're constantly pooing yourself.
Yeah.
And I know how that feeling is when I went to Thailand for holidays years ago and got the old Thailand belly. And I didn't sleep very well when I was pooing myself in bed either.
Yeah.
So that was for like 3 months. So obviously for his first 3 months of setting him up to sleep, did not go well. And then after that, we did all the things, we did all the sleep training and stuff like that. And we had a period where things were starting to go all right. And then because he was exposed to no pathogens for the first 8 months of his life, because due to COVID and stuff, we pretty much weren't taking him anywhere. And then we started going to daycare. And ever since then, all of the training and stuff that we'd put in place just went downhill because he got sick every month for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. So now that we've pulled him out, starting to see a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel in regards to the sleeping, because he's been healthy for probably 3, almost 4 straight weeks now. And now he's starting to sleep kind of like a normal kid. Yeah. All of a sudden. So I think it's a really good decision that we've made. You guys can probably see it too. I'm way more fresh this morning than I have been the last couple of weeks.
Jason puts on a pretty, he's a game time kind of guy, but some mornings that he's got here, your brain is mashed potato.
Oh, and you'd hear that. You'll notice it when I use more filler words. So that's a...
Oh, I notice it. Yeah. And it's not just that. It's all sorts of
And
things.
it's everything. And,
Yeah.
and I
It's
just look fucked too.
It's like when I pulled out in front of you on the way in and gave you the finger and you thought you were going to have to throw down, not realising it was your brother.
And I was ready to go too.
Yeah. Okay, so that sucks. No, but that's good.
Yeah.
Pissing a bottle is so good. So my news for the week, both my properties went unconditional.
Yay!
Finally, so one settles on the...
We've still got these.
Yeah. One settles on the 1st. I think one settles a couple of weeks after that.
That is awesome, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, so that'll be good. So I've still got a lingering insurance claim that's concerning me a little bit because the first time around when I've had to get an insurance claim before, it was actually pretty quick. But this one's a much larger amount. And
this is for number one that the tenant was in?
Yeah. And I'm not liking the noises that the insurance company are making.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But that is a good thing. It's so funny, like, just got my rates bill.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm so close to the precipice.
Yeah.
And things still getting still asking for money. But no, I'll be glad to be out of that, and I might even do maybe in a couple of weeks or something after it all settles. I might do like another finance one.
Yeah,
just
cool.
to let you know where I'm going to park it, because I feel like, you know, when I've spoken to some people on my network, they're like, "Oh, you know, what are you going to buy?" And sure, like there will be some stuff that
There'll be some shit.
There'll be some stuff.
I guarantee you there'll be some toys.
There'll be some toys, but at the same time, it's an investment, you know, and that's what I'm building. That's wealth creation. So I'll be parking it somewhere else where it's going to create wealth, and I'll keep people posted on what I do with it. But
these opportunities, you just can't afford to waste them. Like
Correct.
they don't. These sort of look. I'm going to call it a financial windfall. You're going to end up with money in your pocket that you've spent on those places in the last 10 years anyway. But you can kind of look at it as like a forced savings thing, and now you're going to have some sort of financial payoff, which you can either blow it or you can use your money to create more money.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a younger guy in my network. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, and he had not seen my podcast about finance, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I think it's time that I got to buy a house." I'm like, "Yeah, why?" And he goes, "I don't know." And I'm like, "Have you thought of anything else? Like what?" You know, so there is...
It's just because what we've been indoctrinated into doing. You go to school, you maybe go to uni, you maybe not, you maybe do a trade, and all of this is a means to an end of home ownership. But
you don't need to do it.
It doesn't have to be that way.
You can make bank in other ways. I suppose we need to talk about the real, like the big news for this week. The week just gone.
Bigger than me pissing in a bottle in the SeaWorld car park?
Little bit. Which is pulling out of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So, first and foremost, I want to say thank you to all the troops. And I feel very bad that you got drawn into what effectively was a complete and utter waste of time, money, resource, and lives.
Yeah.
Now, pulling out was the only thing that needed to be done. You're going to see heaps and heaps of bad news about what the Taliban's going to do, but something that actually kind of annoyed me was that when the Taliban came out and said, "Hey, we're going to let women stay in school and we're going to be a little bit more progressive," the West, we just slammed them. Yeah, we don't believe you. Well, if they, you know, like, you had your chance. You had 20 years to try and make it yours.
Remember how many times in the last 20 years they used the term nation building?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
We pulled out for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And
it was 13 days.
Yeah.
13 days from pull out to Taliban's takeover.
Yeah. I guess when you compare 13 days to 20 years, it's less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, it is as a proportion. It is less than 5 years. So I'm a little bit... I don't like that it's become a political thing now. Like Biden's pulled it out. I actually admire Biden for actually doing it, right? Because it should have been done, or we should never have gone there in the first place.
Yeah.
So whoever, and it was always going to create a massive vacuum. It was always going to be a shit show.
Yeah.
Whoever did it is going to have to wear it. The fact that he did it and wore it, I commend him for that.
Yeah. You don't forget, Trump had already signed a deal to leave as well.
Yeah.
So but the fact that they actually went ahead and still did it, it's a big thing. The concerning thing is exactly what you're talking about, which is this media rhetoric, which is just fired up as soon as this has happened. We're being shown all of the images of the people running underneath the plane trying to get out. We're being told about how the women and children are going to be negatively affected by this. We've been told that they're going to regress as far as, women's education and all that sort of stuff. And the problem is, this is all the same call to action bullshit that the media fed us 20 years ago when we went there in the first place.
Yeah, they didn't. In the meantime, they didn't. Well, the people that did show us bombing, like schools and killing innocent people, those people are still on the run for releasing.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was updates about Julian Assange in the last couple of weeks as well, where is he still in? He's in England, and the UK courts have said that there's grounds for the US to appeal their decisions again to try to extradite him to America. Like, all Julian Assange did was expose some of the atrocities that were going on over there. That's all he did. Yeah,
it wasn't his work.
No,
he was a publisher.
Yeah, someone gave him the information and he published it.
Yeah,
and now we're trying to persecute him for that.
How long's he been in jail for? Well, effectively in jail when he was in the embassy.
Well, it was the late 2000s, wasn't it, when he first got shacked up on a bogus sexual assault charge?
So what I want to say is that, because I've had a few conversations and with people, and it's always been the same thing. We tend to get caught up in the now. Why we shouldn't have done this, we shouldn't have done that in the very recent history. But you actually need to go back to the inception of it.
Yeah.
And we need to, and I count us into this because I was in. I've said it on the podcast before. When the trade towers came down, I was ready to enlist to go and fight.
Yeah.
I was indoctrinated by that,
Because I can still remember, we were in the lounge room when we lived with our parents. Like, we watched it live. Because, obviously, running the pizza shop, we used to stay awake until fairly late because obviously mum and dad would come home fairly late or we would come home with them or whatever it was. And I can remember it was breaking news on TV and I remember being in the lounge room watching it live.
Yeah, we saw the second tower
So
live. But on net result, if we had done nothing after that, like the proportion of people that would have saved, like lives we would have saved, exponentially greater than actually going over there. We achieved nothing.
Yeah.
We achieved nothing. Not a thing.
Well, we achieved nothing that we achieved none of the objectives that we were told that we were going there to achieve.
Well, we did the Osama bin Laden thing, which again, whether you believe that he's this mastermind or whatever the relationship between the US and the bin Laden family was, whatever, was it worth it? In my opinion, absolutely not.
Yeah.
None of it was. None of it was.
Well, I mean, let's say that they did kill Osama bin Laden. Well, what's just happened now? Osama bin Laden has been around for 10 years, or however long it's been since we killed him.
Yeah, we're still there.
And we're still over there, and as soon as you pull out, the Taliban's just moved in and taken over. So what have you actually accomplished in that time?
And I want to say too, because there's a lot of young people that watch this that probably don't even know what it was like during the, when all this stuff flared up, and some of that sentiment carries on today. And an example I can give you is whenever there's a news report where someone gets attacked, what's the tagline they always put on it? Not sure if it's terror related.
Yeah.
So we still label things as terror. For the young and uninitiated, for 20 years we fought a war on terror. That was the slogan.
That's right.
War on terror.
Yeah.
What is terror? We didn't go and close down any ghost trains. They're terrifying. That's what we should have done.
Yeah,
right?
we didn't stop Hollywood from releasing all the Saw, the 13, 14, 15 Saw movies. They're terrifying.
But as crazy as that sounds, and I'm trying to make it sound ridiculous because it was.
Yeah.
It was absolutely ridiculous. We were fighting a word.
Yeah, and just think of the irony too, where the event that spurred this on was the September 11 attacks on America, and about, was it 3,000 odd people died?
Mm-hmm.
And the justification for going to war was, we need to stop these terror attacks happening again. So to stop that from happening, which the terror attack, when you analyse it, was a foreign agent entering your country and killing 3,000 people.
Yep.
So to stop terrorist attacks from happening around the world, we entered a foreign country and we killed their people.
Yeah. And here's just a statistic for you. So more US troops committed suicide in Afghanistan than the 3,500 people that died in the Trade Center. Mm-hmm. Like, and that is shocking to me.
Yeah.
That is shocking. And I read that stat, that was probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the number is now. And this is where I get a little bit frustrated, that there's this political and media reaction and massive overreaction to things that happen. I'll give you a micro version of this. I spoke to someone else during the week about the footballer that got stabbed. Like they
Todai Kefu.
Yeah, so kids effectively broke into the guy's house and stabbed him. And all over social media, there's people saying, I think the guy's 15 years old or something. One of the kids.
Yeah, one of the, yeah.
And they're just saying he should be tried as an adult, and he should go away for the rest of his life. Right? There's an example of when you get emotional about something.
Yeah.
And you make this wild and outlandish commentary towards it. Whereas if you are rational, why is nobody asking, how did this kid get to this in the first place?
Yeah.
What's this family unit like?
That's right.
Why
does he feel like at the age of 15 he needs to break into someone's house and even like participate in combat with a giant man? Todai Kefu's a giant.
Yeah.
And I think there was three of them, three kids,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, what are the circumstances that led up to that event first?
Yeah.
What are those circumstances? And
we've all made mistakes at 15.
100%.
Now, some are more major than others, but that can't make that person's rest of their life.
Yeah.
Their whole life should not be moulded on one event.
Yeah.
And my argument is I feel like it's a Western culture thing, is to criticize it's almost like our medicine, right? We treat the symptom, not the cause.
Yeah.
And it's the same as what we do. We want this guy crucified because we think that's going to stop the next 15-year-old kid from doing it.
Yeah,
but we all know that doesn't work.
No,
that's not how the brain works. We
Yeah.
know that. But what we do know is that the chances of people going off the rails are reduced if they have a better education, they have a better family unit,
Yep.
they have more opportunities, they have the ability to work, the ability to get mentorship from...
They aren't being fed fear porn all day, every day
Yes.
on social media and on mainstream media and
So-
YouTube as well.
So those things we know, yet that's not the conversation, and that's concerning to me. That to me is it. I am embarrassed to think that that's what our society has become.
The other concerning part of it is how comfortable people are these days to make absolute decisions on literally every issue.
Yeah.
So we've obviously made a lot of statements on this podcast over the last 12 months, as we went through last week. And I mentioned that I went back and I'd rewatched one of our videos from late last year, it was November last year. And we had made some statements on that as well. And a lot of those statements have turned out to be true. Because a lot of research goes into those statements before we make them. Like, we understand that it is important to, if you're going to make a call on something, you fucking better have done some research behind it.
Yeah. It's based on something, not a feeling.
Yeah, it's facts, not feelings.
Yeah.
And look, there's a bit of feeling involved in it and it's not really feeling, it's watching trends and trying to extrapolate those out into the future.
The feeling gets you to investigate.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
But you scroll through a social media feed and it'll be a news story about literally anything. And no one's got the facts on it because no one was there. No one knows the players, but everyone speaks in absolutes now.
Yeah.
It's not like it's very rare to see someone comment on this and go, fuck, I wonder what really happened. Like, obviously, it's horrible to think that a family got attacked in their own home. That's horrible.
And the law
no one's saying they're not.
There's a law framework to look after that part.
Yeah, that's right.
But for the mob to say, let's tear this kid apart, that is wild to me.
Yeah.
That is like an animalistic response.
Well, this is like, I shared that video the other day on Facebook about mass psychosis and how that occurs. And I would assume that the majority of people haven't watched it, but it's really interesting. I'll put a link for it in the show notes on this video. But what it speaks about is how a massive group of people can be manipulated into going into these like mass psychosis-like states, which I think we're seeing a lot at the moment. And what it referenced in the past when this has happened is the witch hunts in the, like, was it 1500s or whatever. So again, kids who are too young to realize this, and maybe haven't heard about it, there was a period of time where people were so convinced that some women were witches, they would burn women at the stake. And were like in this rabble-rousing group where they were hunting down women. And like one of the old tests as to whether or not a woman was a witch was they would put you in a cage and they would submerge you underwater.
I think it's called a dunking stool. I think it was what it was
called.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you floated, you were a witch and they burnt you alive. If you didn't float, you just died anyway of drowning. Like, and so when people think that it's not possible for human beings to get into these mass psychosis-like states, it's happened before.
It happens all the time.
And the thing that this video goes into, which I find really interesting, is the means to create an environment where that can happen again. There are so many more ways to do that these days because we have constant access to us all the time. So you need to take an audit of the content that you're consuming. You really, really do. One of my biggest concerns about, let's call it the vaccine debate at the moment. I don't want to get into it. Whatever side you're on, I don't care. Love you anyway. I put a similar post up the other day. But my major concern is this. You don't have to ruin every relationship that you've got with someone who disagrees with you.
Yeah.
And which is what we're seeing. Yeah. And it's disgusting. It shouldn't happen. It's really sad.
Yeah.
And here's a challenge for the week. Every single one of you will know what side of the debate you're on. And every single one of you will know at least one person that you consider a friend or maybe used to consider a friend who's on the other side of the debate. Here's a challenge for the week. Reach out to that person, have a normal conversation.
Yeah.
Remind that person why you guys used to be mates in the first place.
Yeah.
And remind yourself why you used to be mates in the first place. Because it's the age-old saying of divide and conquer.
Yeah.
And getting back to the Afghanistan thing, it's what we're seeing it again. I'm getting fucking flashbacks with all the media reports.
Cronulla riots.
Yeah.
All stemmed from a hatred towards Islam
Yep.
out of all this.
That's right.
That mob rule. That was an example of mob rule.
Yep.
Not based on anything but pure emotion. And manipulated by the media that are telling us we should be scared about it. They still talk about it today.
That's right.
So if a brown person stabs someone, terrorist. If a white person stabs someone, mental health.
Mental health issues, yeah.
Right? So just, we need to be aware that this kind of thing happened. And at the end of the day, like, what you said is so important. We should be connecting, like now more than ever, we need to connect with people. We got these people in lockdowns in New South Wales and
Victoria.
And Victoria. If you've got friends down there and you're in the relatively free state of Queensland, ring them.
Yeah, reach out to them.
Make sure they're okay. Talk to them. Give them some semblance of what it's like to be out.
Yeah.
We need to connect more now than ever.
Yeah, and that is the issue because
this is the first time we've been physically disconnected.
That's right. And just think of the rhetoric that we've been hearing for the last 18 months. Like, stay apart. Stay apart from each other.
Don't talk to your neighbour.
Don't talk to your neighbour. Stay away from them. Like, I heard a bit of a press conference from Gladys Berejiklian the other day where she was literally saying, if you come into contact with anyone, you need to assume that they've got the virus or that you've got the virus. And it's like, what is... The virus is this fucking rhetoric. That's the real virus.
That is a virus.
That's why I shared those statistics. Like, we're being told every single day that Delta variant is more transmissible and more deadly, and they publicise all of the deaths from it, and every single death from it, if it is actually from it, because oftentimes they say died with COVID, not died from COVID, which is... language is very important. But they publicise all of that stuff. But the facts are this. So far this year, we've had 13,820 cases of COVID, probably raised by the time you guys watch this video, and we've had 66 deaths.
Yeah.
That is 0.47% death rate. Last year, at the 31st of August, we had 724 deaths already. Yeah. Now, there's a big reason why that happened, because last year, we didn't know what COVID was, hospitals didn't know how to treat it, / were being told by the World Health Organization that the treatment plan was literally paracetamol and ibuprofen, and if they got really bad, put them on a ventilator. We've got early interventions now, like the shout out to all of the medical community and the hospital staff and the nurses. I know you guys are struggling. You're doing an amazing job. And the biggest problem that I see out of all of this stuff is we're being pushed to breaking point. So that in the video that I'm going to put that, I'm going to keep coming back to it, talks about it. What happens is this: we all get backed into a corner by the rhetoric, by the constant press conferences and the constant media spin on it and all that sort of shit. And it gets to a point where they take everything away from you. They lock you down in your house. They prevent you from being able to open your business. We're now talking about discriminating against people based on vaccination status. As to whether or not they can go to work, as to whether or not their children can go to school. And slowly but surely, I spoke about drip feeding last year. We're at a point now where people are accepting this as okay.
Yeah.
For their own safety.
Yeah.
But you got to get back to the stats. The stats say 0.47% death rate this year, which means we know what we're doing. We've had cases. We've had almost 14,000 cases. A lot of these people are just isolated in home quarantine. If it's such a deadly virus, wouldn't every single person be in a hospital?
Yeah.
Oh, and when they keep talking about how we're running short of hospital beds, I checked the other day the statistics. So we've got like 960 something hospitals in Australia, public hospitals. We've got 62,000 hospital beds. Where there's about 500 people in hospital Australia-wide at the moment with COVID. So what I want to keep getting back to, stop letting the spin
dictate your emotion.
Because here's an interesting, and I know I'm rambling a little bit here and I'm going off topic, but there's an interesting similar correlation to road rage. So I remember reading a study about why people participate in road rage, because road rage is a really interesting phenomenon where normally calm, non-confrontational people can get behind the wheel, someone cuts them off and they're on the horn and they're given the finger and they turn into monsters, right? And it's always been this really interesting phenomenon. And they believe that the reason why that happens is because your brain, like human beings, we're not built to go as fast as a car goes. Right? So when we are at speed and we know that we are at the mercy of the drivers around us too, because if you're on the highway, it's got 4 lanes and there's 1,000 cars on there going with you, you can only control yourself. So if someone else crashes into you, then, so that's a real possibility. Anyone who drives the M1 every day knows it's a possibility. Yeah. So what that does, that sends your brain into fight or flight mode. So you're constantly in this fight or flight mode. Your adrenaline spikes, your cortisol, which is your stress hormone, spikes. And when you're driving, you're in this fight or flight mode. So then when the smallest thing happens, which could be someone cutting you off, you perceive that as a direct threat and you act accordingly. And so that's why these people are flipping out off the handle, because they're already in that fight or flight mode. And the one little thing that happens pushes them over the edge.
Yeah, I witnessed it. It happened to me.
Okay.
And to the point, like, the guy's eyes, he's at my window, punching my window, and I had done nothing. I don't know if he'd mistaken me for another car, or his wife that was in the car, she wouldn't look at me when I was
Yeah.
next to it, and I'm wondering if the only thing I can think of after all these years, this is 15 years ago, is like she went, oh, by the way, I've been having an affair with that guy. But the rage, his face was red, and his eyes were looking straight through me, and he was about to break his hand punching the window. Like, that's not human.
No,
you know, that's not a human response.
That is an irrational part of your brain, which is an old school, deep-seated part in your amygdala, which is designed to keep you safe when you're perceiving real threat. So that's the bit that probably Todd Ikefu channeled when his family's being attacked and he fought off 3 teenage kids with knives and machetes and shit.
Yeah.
Right? And it's got a purpose.
For sure.
It absolutely has a purpose, because sometimes the shit goes down and you need to have that as a call to action. The problem is that part of your brain's being tapped into every single day by the media, by the government, to control your behaviours. And that video, which I'll reference again, it goes through one of the most effective ways to keep tapping into that part of the brain is if you put a threat out there and then you take it away. And then you put the threat back out there again and then you take it away. And then you put the threat back out there again and you take it away. So people are already primed to perceive that threat as soon as it gets mentioned again. And we're getting that with things like lockdowns. So they lock us down because it's a major threat, and then they take the lockdowns away and we all relax. And then they lock us down again because we've got one case, and then they take it away and we relax. So you're already being primed. That part of your amygdala is swelling up to the point that then you get to the point where you feel like people who you've never met before, who you'll never interact with, who
really have nothing to do with
have nothing to do with you, them not getting vaccinated is a threat to you.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at. And you need to understand, if you've got those feelings, they are normal. But you need to take an audit of yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
And you need to stop villainizing people that you actually know and love. Because I don't know about you. My social media, like friends on Facebook, for example, I'm only friends with them for a reason, because I know them and I like them.
Yeah.
So there's no one on my friends list that I want to come to harm. No one.
Yeah.
Fuck, some of the stuff I see on there is aggressive.
Yeah.
You know? And I believe that some of that aggression is coming from that part of the brains, which is just locking people in this fight or flight mode. And then now you've got this, our governmental overlords are giving us the way out. All of this pain can stop. You just need to do this one thing for us. Now, that one thing 18 months ago was 2 weeks at home to flatten the curve. But notice how that one thing, that the carrot keeps moving. The goalposts keep moving. So we got some fat cat sitting on our backs with the fishing rod over us, with the carrot dangling in front of us, and we keep chasing this carrot, but obviously the carrot moves with us. That's where we're at.
Yeah, I think the friends thing is the most important, because I'm hearing a lot of so forget the outlandish, Facebook posts and things like that. But I know of some people that have cut people out of their network because of their beliefs on this, and that is wild.
Yeah.
You are friends for a reason.
Yeah.
Right? Like, build that connection. We need to build that connection more now than ever.
Yeah.
The connection is more important than anything else.
That's right.
I'll say that.
And just think about that. Like, 2 years ago, if someone didn't get the flu jab, would you have defriended them forever?
Yeah, no one would have cared.
No.
No
one would have cared. It's divide and conquer, and it's working.
It's working.
The media machine is working. It is turning normal, rational, loving people against each other as a means to an end.
Question: is the news a public service?
No. It's on commercial television.
Yeah, so explain how that works.
So
who pays the media?
It's advertisers. It's
Right.
an advertising model.
And do advertisers pay if people don't watch?
Generally, no, they pay a lower amount. So that's why the television has things called ratings. Right. So ratings is how many eyeballs you get on your show in key demographics, which is what advertisers are trying to target their advertising to sell certain products to certain clients. Yeah.
So it's not like a public utility. It's not like
no
necessarily the facts. It's what gets them
Yes.
advertising.
Now there is ABC, which is the public broadcaster, which is funded by the government.
But
So
the government doesn't even go talk to them.
no. Well, yeah, I do know
What
that.
happened with that? Did you follow that any further?
I-
Just to paint a bit of a picture, the ABC was sort of whinging for a bit because a lot of the politicians that they had organised interviews with had said, no, we can't be on it.
And they appear on
We're
every other
sick,"
network.
or something, and then
Yeah.
they go on the commercial one.
I believe. Okay, so this is me trying to draw a couple of points together and make a call on something. So take it with a grain of salt. But I believe that it all started to change earlier this year because two main things happened. Number one I believe that the federal government cut some of the funding to the ABC,
Right.
which obviously the ABC was a bit shirty about.
Yeah.
And I believe the other thing was how the ABC handled the Christian Porter scandal.
Right.
Because you've obviously got Christian Porter suing the ABC for the way that... And who's Christian Porter, you might ask? Well, 6 months ago is all we could talk about. So,
Yeah.
and you see how that's gone out of the news cycle now when it's convenient. But I believe that that's part of the case.
Yeah, okay.
Is
I
obviously...
could even see from a macro level how that would be a little bit awkward. Like, oh, well, you kind of did this wrong. He's suing you for it. I don't really want to...
Well, when you've got your public broadcaster, which is funded by the government, doing hit jobs on major government officials, and then you wonder why other major government officials don't want to appear on your show, you can kind of understand that. So, look, I think there's a lot to be taken out of that. But again, the other thing too that you have to consider with a government-funded broadcaster is what message are they going to be broadcasting? Is it going to be the absolute 100% unbiased truth, or will it maybe have a bit of a pro-government slant to it? So,
Can I talk to you about another spin thing which I find interesting?
Shane Warne, the spin king.
He is the spin king. Suspiciously quiet at the moment.
Actually, he was involved in a naked image scandal recently. Did you hear about it?
No.
So
Well, that'll be a good segue in my things I go.
Okay, so some photos of Shane Warne back in the day. So they're old, they're not new.
Mullet, fat Shane Warne?
No, he was in pretty good shape. But
lobster skinned.
Yeah, he was still on the durries. He was on the diuretics at the time.
Right.
But they were images of him involved in a menage a trois have just all of a sudden resurfaced, and he was in good shape at the time too.
Yeah.
But like, no one cares because everyone's just like, yeah, he was the man.
Yeah.
Good on you, Shane. Well done. But that was like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear.
Yeah.
It was not on my feed.
Obviously, it wasn't big news.
So did you hear about what's happening with OnlyFans?
Yes.
Now, tell me what you know about it.
So from what I know, OnlyFans has recently announced that they will be stopping the selling of explicit video content due to complaints from their payment providers like banks and etc. Because something similar happened, I think, with Pornhub and stuff recently, didn't it? Where certain providers, I think their shareholders are saying we don't want to be involved in the...
They've always battled that. That's
the selling of explicit material, so where we want to pull the ability for you to... Yeah.
So I tried to dig in a little bit deeper because I'm going, that's their business model. And if that's the part that they're going to get rid of, there's no business. Okay?
Yeah.
So what I can see is that it's about child exploitation.
Okay.
Because, using the Pornhub example, they're still operating.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's still lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots, so I hear, of content that's on there.
Is there?
Anecdotal evidence? Yes.
Did you say anecdotal evidence?
So, but I also wonder if this is a technique to manipulate the upcoming IPO. So
Okay.
let's be real. Is the bank really going to stop payment processing
No.
of a $20 billion business?
No. Why would you?
No.
If you're getting a fee kickback on every single payment that you transfer,
Every single transfer.
and banks were processing payments to fucking third world countries for years, where where child pornography was coming from.
Yep.
It only stopped when they got caught. So I don't
Is it
think
any different to buying a pair of Nikes online?
no, but let's not get too into the weeds.
Yeah, but so I'm trying to have a look at this. Like, is the bigger picture market manipulation? Because so you receive the information like I thought most people would receive the information. They're not going to do porn anymore. I'll give you the tip. If they don't do porn, it should be called no OnlyFans. There'll be no fans.
Yeah.
Okay. So what else is it?
I've got a theory on it, but I'll let you finish.
My theory is that it's just a thing to throw out there to say, hey, there's some massive flaws in this business model. Mm-hmm. It's not really worth what the valuation would be if it was left unencumbered. Mm-hmm. So it's leading up to an IPO. It could be one of the biggest IPOs of the year. Mm-hmm. It's probably easily like top 5 IPOs of the year. Mm-hmm. I feel like is there some naughtiness going on by some hedge funds that are trying to get it priced correctly so they can get a piece of it, and then when they know that all that, then the news can come out after and say, oh, no, it was just about this specific slither of it. Which,
the news won't even come out after. It'll just move on to the next part of the news cycle.
If they push the news and then the investors jump back on, then... So if you lower the IPO price, the valuation, a bunch of hedge funds go in, buy it at X, because they... it's a devalued thing because they're going to remove the part that makes them a business. Oh, by the way, no, that thing that we were worried about was only 0.001% of the child exploitation, which OnlyFans is committed to creating an algorithm to get rid of. Yeah. So we're all good now.
Yeah, we're going to be using Apple's search technology.
Yeah.
So, hot tip for finance heads, get in on the OnlyFans IPO because it's going to be artificially cheaper than it should be.
Never get in on an IPO because if you can get in on an IPO, the hedge fund wants you to be there.
Yeah. I had another theory.
Okay.
And my theory was that there is some shadiness going on from larger establishment powers that be because OnlyFans has posed a problem to the establishment in that OnlyFans has really become sort of like the crypto blockchain of pornography.
Not so much crypto blockchain, I would say it is the democratization of the sex industry.
Yeah, so you can go... So for now, like porn stars who used to get paid however much they got paid to film a video for a big porn company and then get nothing after that, they can now go direct to consumer and are making a fucking fortune.
Yeah, they keep it.
That's right.
Or I think OnlyFans takes a 30% clip.
Okay, but
for the platform, but I'm pretty sure the managers were taking a 40% clip, and and like you said, once they had done the job, then there was nothing.
Yeah, that's it. So you're not getting any. It's not like an NFT where they're going to be paying you in perpetuity.
And this, they're building an archive that lives forever.
That's right.
They can keep monetizing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I called it the democratization of sex work, because it's taking the middle people out of the loop.
So, and again, this is an assumption too, but is there like free pornography available on the internet?
I think so.
Okay. And are there ads on those sites that, like, do you get shown ads when you go and watch free pornography?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just asking you. Like, do you have a friend who's visited any of these sites before?
I think I've seen some screenshots.
Yeah.
And I believe there's advertising.
Okay. So in other words, if you were able to pay your actors and actresses a once-off fee to then be able to create and hold an archive of footage in perpetuity, which you could then have ad banners and run ads at the beginning of content or even during content in perpetuity, that would be a pretty good business model?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So if your same actresses and actors stopped coming to you begging for a job to get paid a couple of grand or whatever it is, and were then directly marketing direct to consumer and taking 70% of the profit because OnlyFans has taken a 30% clip, could that potentially affect your business model?
Yeah, absolutely.
That was part of my theory. The other part of it too is it's not just the normal porn stars, it's the regular people who are making massive bank now instead of going and working the shitty $7 an hour jobs in the States.
Yeah, interesting.
So the economy will be potentially struggling because you need desperate people to do the shit kicker work.
Yeah.
And if a large percentage of these previously desperate people can now make massive amounts of income from flashing their minge from the comfort of their own home, which is great, especially during COVID lockdowns and stuff like that. It's really been a way for people to make money who had that taken away from them. It's really hard to get the old system running again when you don't have the cannon fodder to do it.
Can we talk about that gender equality? Because I'll give you the tip. If I start on OnlyFans, I'll go broke. Can we be real about that?
Don't sell yourself short, because at the end of the day,
there's some weirdo out there who's like, I'll see the guy's feet.
Well, yeah, let's be real. 95% of the consumers of OnlyFans would be blokes. So whether blokes are straight or gay, yeah, there's the two.
Yeah.
You could still make bank because you'll be someone's cup of tea.
Okay, so put in the comments, do you think I should start an OnlyFans? Should I start an OnlyFans for my finance stuff? Because at the moment I'm giving all the finance tips out for free. Maybe I can monetize it on OnlyFans and you can see my feet.
Yeah, do it.
Put in the comments, do you think I should start an OnlyFinance fans?
But look, I think that's a real thing. I think that
could be.
There's... Again, why has cryptocurrency been demonized? Because it is a peer-to-peer service which cuts out the establishment.
Democratizes finance.
That's right. So that's why it's been demonized, and they've tried really, really hard to get rid of it, but it still keeps rearing its head because you can't kill it, which is a great thing. I feel like OnlyFans becoming a peer-to-peer service, pulling out, like getting rid of the traditional establishment, that's caused problems for a lot of people.
Did you see what Snowden tweeted about it? About the OnlyFans story?
That Bitcoin solves this problem.
Solves this.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And if you were OnlyFans, would you not go, oh, fuck, we're just going to convert to Bitcoin then?
Could do.
Why wouldn't you?
Could do. My OnlyFans, if you guys think I should have one, I'd accept Bitcoin. Somehow, I'd figure it out. I know what I'd do. I'd put my cryptographic Bitcoin address on the bottom of my foot.
Problem is, you'd write it on your foot the normal way, and then it would show on the camera, and they'd send the money to someone else.
I'll put a QR. I'm going to tattoo a QR code to the bottom of my foot, but in reverse, because I ain't no idiot.
Yeah. But no, look, that's a really interesting story, and it's.
But let's watch this. So
watch this space.
This is what we like to do.
Yeah.
We like to raise a topic, break the topic down, predict potential outcomes.
Yeah.
Watch what those outcomes are, and then sort of reassess our.
Yeah, that's right. The modelling. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got. Do you want another prediction?
Yeah.
Vaccine related.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting parts of the vaccine debate, which is happening at the moment, is the fact that Australia is starting to ramp up vaccine efforts because everyone in Sydney's been so scared they have to go and get them. Not one time have I heard on mainstream Australian media about how a lot of overseas markets are starting to go into booster shots. Now, booster shots problematic for multiple reasons. The first reason I'm going to pull on is if you're pro-vaccine, booster shots cause a real problem when it comes to the COVAX scheme. Because originally, if you'll remember, the COVAX scheme was brought in by Bill Gates, because they protected patents on for all the vaccine companies so they could make bank. And what the scheme was supposed to do was the rich countries that were supposed to pay for all the vaccines, they would get vaccinated first, and then they would donate all of their vaccines to the poor countries. So now if they're talking about booster shots, well, that means that if you're talking third shot, well, that's more time that these poor countries have to wait when they haven't even had one vaccine.
Yeah.
So if you're pro-vaccine, then that's obviously problematic.
Yeah.
But the other interesting thing is that, so we're not talking about booster shots in Australia at the moment. we're pretending that the rest of the world isn't being forced to take them.
Yeah.
Because it's not suitable, it doesn't work for the narrative over here, because then it just creates more vaccine hesitancy, right? Because if people are going, well, like there's places like Israel which have got extremely high vaccination rates, and it's shown that the protection from the vaccine has waned in 6 months, and they're already handing out booster shots, a third shot now. Is the vaccine really doing what we had it marketed to us to do in the first place?
It's a hard sell to get a third shot when most of us haven't even got the first.
That's right.
Yeah.
So here's my prediction.
Right.
So we'll be talking booster shots, and I think we'll be talking booster shots somewhere towards the end of first quarter next year.
Yeah.
And the
leading up to winter.
Leading up to winter.
Yeah.
Because some of the other data and numbers that have been sort of obfuscated is... So we're having a massive surge in New South Wales at the moment, and people are dying, and it's super unfortunate. But if you go back and have a look at the actual data and the graphs of when the deaths have occurred, the majority of the deaths occurred in the first 6 months of last year, when the pandemic first started. Post-winter last year in Australia, we had relatively no deaths for probably 9 months. You had a couple of blips here and there, but cases were down, deaths were down. Now this year...
Well, the first one in 2021... was a guy in Queensland who was living in Thailand and just came over here because he was sick.
Yeah. But you need to consider that all of the cases and deaths pretty much went down to next to nothing before the vaccine rollout began. Because vaccine rollout didn't start until the 22nd of February this year. Okay? So then there was the call to action for everyone to go and get vaccinated. Now, what my concern is this. I've mentioned on the podcast before... in my limited understanding of virology, the way viruses tend to mutate is that the more they mutate, the more infectious they become, but the less deadly they become. And the theory is that a virus's primary goal is to survive and to spread. So it gets to a point where the virus starts to understand there is no benefit to killing your host, because then you die.
Yeah.
If you've got no host, you die along with it. So as the viruses tend to mutate, and this has happened in every other respiratory virus in history, as they start to mutate, they become more infectious and less deadly. And that's being reflected in the numbers this year. Because, let's be honest, we keep being told every single day how shit our vaccine rollout has been. So the vaccinated population is still relatively low. So the numbers that you see on TV as well, where they're like, oh, it's 20% over 16, it's the 20% of the eligible people in phase 1B of the vaccine rollout at the moment who have had it. So it's not 20% of the whole population, but again, this is another persuasion thing where if you think everyone else is doing it, you're more likely to do it as well, because people want to be part of the crowd. So what my concern is that the government and the media will say that the reason why 2021 we have had far less deaths than we had in 2020 was because of the vaccine. But it's actually not the case. I believe a big part of it is the natural progression of the virus, where it's mutated into Delta variant. It's become more transmissible, but has become less deadly. And the data supports that already.
The thing you could argue, though, is like the massive amount of lockdown.
You could absolutely argue that. But we did have lockdowns last year too.
Yeah.
So there's other factors as well. Sure. Like I said earlier, the hospitals actually knowing how to treat people that have got it. So what I'm finding interesting when I look overseas, so I looked at Israel, I've looked at America, and I've looked at the UK. So Israel's
number one, right? They were the ones in terms of like the quickest ones to get 80%.
Yeah, and what's really interesting too is how the rhetoric has changed in regards to Israel's numbers, because I've been watching a lot of content which is pro-vaccine content, because I want to be exposed to both sides, and I've been watching it for many months. And at the beginning of, well, not even the beginning, but 3 to 4 months into Israel's rollout, they were talking about how 90% of people in Israel had at least one dose, and how it was like 60 or 70% had 2 doses, and how good is this, and blah, 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 blah. So if you go and have a look at the numbers and do some research, Israel's had massive surges in cases, and they're breakthrough cases, because obviously you've got such a high population that are being vaccinated. That means that if it does spread, then there's going to be a large percentage of those people who have already been vaccinated. Now, the same people that I've been following who are talking about how good the numbers were started pulling the numbers back. They're like, oh, it's important to remember that Israel, they only have about 60% of people that have had 1 dose, and so the numbers are pulled back. right?
Because that's not the Google number, because I checked the Google number, which
Right.
has the first and second dose.
Yeah, okay.
I think the first dose was over, like, late 80s.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then the second dose was something like 70 or 80 or something like that.
Yeah. So again, so watching these videos now that doesn't support the pro-vaccine narrative.
Sure.
So they've pulled some of the numbers back to make it seem like it's not as big a deal, and they keep trying to say it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Well, vaccinated, unvaccinated are still getting Delta. That's been proven overseas. Even in America, so the CDC leaked a report that was saying they were getting 35,000 breakthrough infections every week. So a breakthrough infection is when a vaccinated person still gets the virus. That data hasn't been updated for like 3 months. So they're still saying that that's a low amount, but they haven't actually updated the numbers yet. So anyway, what am I saying? It is not, in my opinion, it is not a coincidence that countries who are overseas that are coming into their colder months are starting to talk about the waning effects of the vaccines as a call to action to get people to go and take it. Because respiratory viruses transmit far more in the colder months than they do in the warmer months, because people are forced inside more, they're in close proximity, and that's how these things spread. So, predictions for Australia: by the end of this year, we'll have hit whatever percentage it is that we're being told that we've hit, and it's probably going to be a real number because plenty of people out there are being scared into going and getting vaccinated. Now, whether or not that number is actually as high as we think, because again,
It won't matter.
It won't matter. That's
Whatever
right.
the listed number will be gospel.
Yeah, it'll be what it'll be. But towards the end of the first quarter next year, I feel we will then be starting to being told about the need to booster shots, and there's always new studies that come out. It's amazing how many studies are going on all at the same time when they're not studying any of the antivirals that we've spoken about on the podcast before. But new studies will come out saying that vaccine effectiveness is starting to wane, so we need to talk about booster shots. And the reason that they want to talk about booster shots is coming into the winter months, and then there'll be another surge of cases. Cases will surge again because that's what happens. You'll have less deaths again because by then it'll be Gamma variant or whatever Greek alphabet we're up to. And there'll
Would
be...
Omega sue if they called it Omega variant? If we get to Omega variant, would the watch company Omega say, no, we're not having it?
Well, if I was Delta Goodrum, I'd be fucking livid at the moment.
Yeah. Someone had that on Facebook. He's like, voting like which artist is the best, and she wrote Delta, not the virus.
Yeah. Well, hey, Delta Goodrum's pretty catchy too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there'll be another variant that comes out. There'll be a surge of cases. There'll be way less deaths, and they'll be applauding themselves and patting themselves on the back, going, "Great news, guys! It's because we got vaccinated." But it'll just, in my opinion, and again, I'm not a doctor, but I've just paid very close attention to this situation for 18 months because I'm a stay-at-home dad. I've got nothing else to do. I believe that the virus itself is just going to keep mutating to a point where it'll infect a lot of people, and we just won't have the deaths. And they'll blame the vaccines for it, but, you'll have to piece together what the real reasons are for yourself. Because we've already seen that this year.
Oh, yeah.
So that's my prediction.
Let's see.
Yeah.
See. Fire off in the comments.
Yeah.
Fire off. But remember, we love you. We're all friends. Whether you do you, and that's okay.
That's something that I want to say as a point too, is allow people to make their own decisions.
Yep.
We're all adults. Well, I mean, I make these videos as not for kids on YouTube, so no kids listen to it. We're all adults. We've all gotten to a certain age.
No kids are going to get your 55 reference.
Yeah. They should. Bring it back. Group X.
They weren't born.
Group X 55. But allow people to make their own decisions. And it's funny too, and like obviously we've made our position on this pretty clear the whole time. We've been fairly consistent in that. Now, I'm just going to reiterate, if you want to get vaccinated to protect yourself, get vaccinated. Totally fine. It's your decision. If you have no adverse effects to it, that's great. Don't pretend that just because you had no adverse effects to it that no one else is going to, because there's already been documented adverse events.
Yeah.
I mean,
1.2 million. adversary.
Yeah, I mean,
Or globally.
there's at the moment, the TGA safety report says there's been 460 reports of death shortly after vaccination. Only 7 of those have been absolutely linked to immunisation. Now, to consider this, 7 deaths 100% linked to immunisation. Well, we've only had 7 deaths in Queensland total from COVID in the entire pandemic.
Yeah.
So even if it's not all 460 people that they've listed as dying shortly after the vaccine, even if it's just 7, that's now equal with Queensland. And Queensland only had cases this year anyway. We didn't get any cases last year. So in the 2021 sweepstakes at the moment, so far, we're neck and neck for COVID-related and vaccine-related injuries or deaths. So I just want to say, make the decisions that are right for you. If you do want to get vaccinated, that's totally fine. Please try to go outside of the Google and YouTube ecosystem to get information, because Malcolm Roberts mentioned it in Parliament, I think it was about a week ago, that Alphabet, which is the company that owns YouTube and that owns Google, also has, I think it's a 12% share in AstraZeneca. So you need to consider that there might be some sort of conflict of interest there when it comes to the spreading of information.
I was shocked to see who's bought in to AstraZeneca and how recently.
Yeah.
Every major Australian bank and financial institution all has a large piece.
Yeah.
Not since the Bitcoin surge of 2017 have I seen a graph go as quickly up as what that one has.
Have you? You would have heard the story this week too that AstraZeneca's rebranding its name this week.
No.
Oh, you didn't hear about that?
No.
So they are calling it. I can't remember what the name is, but you'll see it in the news over the next coming days. But AstraZeneca, because AstraZeneca is not the company name. AstraZeneca is the name of
The product.
the actual product. The company name is Vaxitech or something.
Right.
I can't remember. But they're changing the name of AstraZeneca to the same name they use in the UK. And the idea is that with coming vaccine passports, that it needs to line up and have continuity, so that if you've been vaccinated with AstraZeneca over here, they might not recognise it. Yeah, righto.
Vaccine passport also has the ability to have a clear test. So not vaccinated, have a clear...
Yeah, which you just won't hear about.
Yeah, but because I was talking to a friend in Canada who was going to get it purely because of travel. Mm-hmm. And then he came back to me and goes, dude, I didn't read the fine print, and there it is as clear as day, or a clear test, which they do at the airport.
That's right. And the fine print is not being spoken out loud because it doesn't support what they're trying to do. But the other thing too that I feel the reason why the name change is because AstraZeneca's got a pretty bad name in Australia. Because at the moment, the only deaths they're counting as vaccine-related deaths are from AstraZeneca. They're not counting anything that's maybe Pfizer-related.
There was the myocarditis one that's on the... That was a Pfizer one, wasn't it? On TGA?
They have not classified any death in regards to myocarditis as a vaccine-related death. They're only classifying the ones which are TTS, the thrombosis, the blood clotting stuff. Okay. And the reason for that is because the burden of proof on a vaccine-related death is held very differently to that of a COVID-related death. So, and this is specifically written on the Australian government websites as well, where with a potential vaccine-related death, if there's any other secondary condition at all, they will say it's not directly linked to vaccination. If it's a COVID-related death, unless you can 100% rule out every other secondary condition, it's classed as a COVID-related death. So the burden of proof is completely different.
That triggered me. Was it this week? No, was it last week or the week
before? It was this week, the 15-year-old kid.
The 15-year-old boy, you've all heard about it, died with COVID-19, and it wasn't until the very, very tail end of the later reporting of it that he's been in intensive care. Prior to all this, he's got viral meningitis. Yeah. He had something else as well. But that it fired off our amygdala. It got us thinking, now a 15-year-old
because
died, and he was listed everywhere. That guy's been used as a
and you'll notice that the marketing campaigns kicked into gear so consider if you're a vaccine company trying to sell vaccines. So up until now, and something else to consider too. Australia is a small fish when it comes to being a global market. This is a global pandemic.
Global response.
That's right, it's a global response. So we are small fish. They don't really care that much about Australia. But these vaccine companies, you've already pretty much hit your thresholds of what you're going to be able to sell in the major markets. So the UK, America, Israel, these countries that have high populations that have taken up high uptake of vaccines, the people who want to be vaccinated are already vaccinated in these countries. So that's why overseas are talking about booster shots, because otherwise you've got nothing else to sell, right? Now in Australia, we have such a low uptake of vaccines so far, and they're claiming it's because of the bungled rollout. To be honest, I don't believe for a second that we've ever had a shortage of vaccines. I believe it's one of the oldest tricks in the book of FOMO. If I was sitting in a boardroom going, we got this great new vaccine, how are we going to sell it? The first thing I'd say is, tell the people they can't have it.
It's funny because I would say for every one person in my network that has said that there is a long delay to get it, I've had 5 people just walk down and get it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe that the
Anecdotal.
shortage is potentially manufactured because it lines up perfectly with the fear porn. We go, 15-year-old kid died with COVID. Oh, there's vaccine shortages. Just get whatever vaccine that you can.
Yeah.
And it's to drive those sales. But you'll also notice too in the media recently, all of a sudden, like literally overnight in the last couple of weeks, now kids have started getting COVID. Just all of a sudden. We never heard about children getting COVID throughout the entire pandemic. But now all of a sudden, so we had the Indooroopilly school cluster, no deaths. I haven't heard of any serious, significant, ongoing issues for any of these kids that have had it, which you fucking would if they were the case, let's be honest. So all of a sudden overnight, we've started hearing about how COVID's affecting children, and then you got the 15-year-old who died with COVID. Now, just on that point before I continue, we have an old line in sales is that every word is a weapon. It can either be used for you or against you. So language is extremely important. So when they say die with, and keep an ear out for that key word if you hear any other reports, if they say with rather than from, you know it's problematic, right? So all of a sudden we've started hearing about all these kids that are being affected by COVID. And we're hearing the rhetoric, I don't know if you've heard much of it, but about long COVID. And like, oh, we don't know what the after effects of long COVID are going to be. So we don't know about the after effects of long COVID, but we also don't know about the after effects of long vaccination. But again, the burden of proof is heavily stacked one way rather than the other. Now, there was a news story which I think kind of just disappeared into the ether over the last few weeks. So we have just recently approved Moderna for use in Australia. And Moderna was wanting to do trials on children between the ages of 6 months and 12 years old. And Australia was put up as one of the places that they wanted to do these trials. Now, I didn't hear a lot about it, but it was reported on TV. I did see some stuff written on TV about it. And suitably was followed up by all of these experts that were talking about, oh, kids are being affected now, and right? So call to action. Now, Moderna has since announced that they will not be doing these trials in Australia, which is great news, except for the fact that they will still be doing these trials in America and in Canada. So, once they're approved, which they will be, they'll be bringing them over here too. Now, the issue as well, which now I get into the weeds. So, the vaccines, none of the vaccines still are formally approved in America. None of them. They're still under emergency use authorization because the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, hasn't actually given the formal sign-off on any of these vaccines. Fun fact about the FDA, there has been no head or director of the FDA for 200 days now. Because there's an acting head. So I feel like part of the reason why they've never been signed off on is because no one is taking that job because they know they'll be forced into signing off on them, and then maybe potentially will be getting legal liability or destruction of reputation. So, yeah.
So, we don't know the motives. We can speculate.
We can speculate.
But the facts are there is no head of the FDA.
Of the FDA.
There hasn't been ever since inauguration day.
That's right. Yeah. So, because it's supposed to be appointed by the administration, and they have not appointed anyone yet. So, why is this important to us here in Australia? Well, in America, they have the emergency use authorization pathway to speed up the approval of drugs to get them out to market when there's a need. In Australia, we have no such pathway. So our Therapeutic Goods Administration approved the vaccines for usage based on the available data at the time. This is written on their website. It was approved based on the available data at the time, and they are accepting rolling data, which means they reserve the right to be able to remove them if the data suggests that they should.
Yeah.
Why am I talking about this? Because if these trials for Moderna go well, which I'm expecting they will, because the trial data will be based on efficacy against COVID, not on safety.
Yeah.
That's another key point. And no kids die from COVID anyway. So Moderna will be saying 100% efficacy in preventing serious illness and death in children. Right? So again, it'll be efficacy of the drug to prevent COVID. It's like serious death and illness. It won't be 100% safe.
Yeah.
Because these trials don't look at safety, they look at efficacy, right? So once the Moderna drug gets emergency use authorization to be used on children in America, the TGA will approve it over here because we don't have an emergency use pathway. It'll be provisionally approved over here based on the data that's available at the time, and they'll be accepting rolling data, and they'll be coming to try to vaccinate your kids too.
And I would put that decision up to the parents.
100%. Make your own informed decision. So again, Nate, fully vaccinated with all of the regular vaccines that have had many years of usage. And look, obviously, some people have had bad side effects from these vaccines too in the past, right? So it was an informed, educated decision. But I can tell you right now, and this actually surprised Amanda too. Like, I told her as well, I had actually done all the research into the regular vaccines that we give Nate as well. So I haven't just looked into the COVID one. I've literally looked into everything because it is important to be able to know.
What was interesting about those original ones was different countries give them to you at different
protocols.
protocols, different times.
Yeah.
And it appears, from my understanding, trying to group them all together in a tight batch causes more issues than spreading them out a little bit, which is what the protocol in Australia is.
Yeah, and interesting point on that for people who are wanting to get the COVID-19 vaccination is, from what the data has shown overseas, one of the reasons why Israel is starting to have problems with waning protection is because they grouped their two shots close together, or closer together than the UK. So in Israel, you were literally getting your second shot between, I think it was around 3 to 6 weeks was the window. So between first and second, whereas in the UK, it was more like 8 to 12 weeks between the two. And a lot of the data is showing that if you actually have the two vaccines spread out over a longer period of time, you're getting a better degree of protection. So if you do want to get vaccinated, that might be something that you can look into doing some research on as well.
And on that note,
let's leave it there. Thanks very much for joining us as usual, guys, and we'll see you next RDO.